नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यश्छन्दसा वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरि विश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्रमितमस्मि द्रविणगुंसवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्म एधि वेदस्य मानि ईस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंहदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Sri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam Cha Hastamalakam Cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaramanyānasmat Gurūn Santato Manatosmi Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyanatmani Mayaya Bahiribodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmaname Badvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitri Kritam Vaya Maya Viva Vijrambhayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Yasyaiva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Vedavachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanad Bhavena Punaravrittirbhavam Bho Nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Nana Chidrakatodara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradikarana Dvara Bahispandate Janami Titameva Bhantam Anubhatye Tat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Deham Pranamapi Indriyanapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balanda Jadopamastwamiti Bhranta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. So as we planned, we begin a second phase of these classes, so to speak. The first phase was a very exhaustive analysis of the first four sutras, which is very traditional in the teaching of Vedanta, called the Chatustutri, Stotri, and it is really done as a minimum in all of the classes, all of the courses, the one we went through and all the other courses were taught. 4 sutras are taught. So we've finished doing that. We've actually revised it, and I feel that in the last 52 classes, more than a year, we have really done a good justice to the 4 sutras. Now we go into the second phase of this class, and I wasn't quite sure exactly what we would do, and I'm still working on it to a certain extent, but I do have a plan, a general plan. And the plan is that, as you know by now, that the Brahma Sutra consists of 555 sutras, and we have done 4. So there's 551 still to go. So how do we cover the rest of them? So I think what I'd like to do is I have a general plan which I will go with you today. And then I think depending on how much time it's taking and your interest level and whether or not, and I will actually probably quiz you after a few classes to say what do you think we should do. So your participation also is important. We can modify how we do the rest of them. But let me give you some general idea of what I think we should do or what I'm going to do. Okay? So let's start with that. By the way, before I get started, with the permission of Ishvara, I think what we will do is, in order to save a little bit of time in the second phase, we will not do the Dakshinamurti Ashtakam. So the prayers will be the 10 Shanti mantras and a few other ones, Smriti Smriti, etc., and Ashubhani. So we will do that, but we'll save a few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, in not doing the Dakshinamurti Stotram. So I just wanted to, so from today was the last time. Next time, I know it's a little bit of a transgression in the way the sutras are covered, but now that we are looking at it a little bit more academically in the 551 sutras, because it is not possible for us to cover from a standpoint of Apparoksha. Apparoksha means that this is what we've done in the first 4 sutras. There also it was partially Paraksha and partially Apparoksha. Apparoksha in the sense that we should have been able to visualize what the arguments of our minds are. Obviously, it was articulated very well with the help of Purva Paksha. So the understanding of the Purva Paksha and Siddhanta is Paroksha Jnanam. But then to internalize it and say, yes, I didn't realize I have the same doubt. And so that is the Apparoksha. So we did a bit of that. In this section, it will be difficult for us to do the Apparoksha for 551. So the best we can do is to get a Paroksha Jnanam. Paraksha Jnanam, we should be very clear about that really. I mean, this is the sequence of learning and we should be clear about what that sequence is. And so Paraksha Jnanam means that you get an introduction to it, but as a separate entity from you. It's very much like, I think Swami Madhyananji had given this example many, many times. He had said that if you want to go someplace which you were not aware of, then somebody has to give you some introduction to it. So, for instance, I think I gave you this example many, many times, that when my wife and I were starting out, and I was working for IBM back in 60s, and so we had a neighbor who was also working for IBM. And at that time, my wife was not working. She was a homemaker, and I was the one who had a job. So my wife and this person's wife, who was also working for IBM, his wife became good friends because they had young kids and they would get together in the neighborhood. It was wonderful. So Carol used to say, okay, now this summer we're going to go to Hawaii. And so my wife would think of Hawaii as just one name. We have no idea what Hawaii is at that time. But then every time she would say, "Oh, that's a wonderful place, you must go there." And she says, "Oh, it's the wind and the air and the temperature." So there was an introduction to Hawaii, a Paraksha introduction. It wasn't until much later, probably I would say minimum of 10 years, maybe 15 years, which is one of the best decisions I made, because I think I told you this, that I decided, we asked them, how much does it cost? And they say, oh, it's a little bit expensive. So I said, I want to just save the money and invest it in some real estate property, because real estate was going up at that time. And I said, so we did that. We did that for 15 years, and I'm very happy that we bought a fourplex with the help of some other friends. And that went up in value, and so we were off and running as far as our ownership of property is concerned. It was wonderful. Later on, we actually did go to Hawaii, and we saw for the first time what a beautiful place it turned out to be. So that was the Apparoksha Jnanam. So an introduction to it where you cannot visualize until somebody describes it to you, either in the form of a talk or in general. You get these brochures these days with pictures of all these places and so on. So that is a Paraksha Jnanam. And then to actually experience this is the Apparoksha Jnanam. So in Vedanta also we exactly have the same thing. Until through the Shravanam you get an introduction to there is something funny going on. You are unaware of your own power of independence. Please look into that. This is Paraksha Jnanam. And then there is the Apparoksha Jnanam. So if I can just delay the introduction to this by giving you an example of this transformation from a Paraksha Jnanam to an Apparoksha Jnanam that just happened just recently for me. And I was, at the moment I'm revising the study of the Bhagavad-Gita with the help of the commentary of Swami Shankarananda, and really enjoying it. It's just phenomenal. So I was just reading a verse from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. The 7th chapter is very dear to me because this is the chapter through which I first heard Vedanta through Swami Chinmayananda. June of 1973. He started with the 7th chapter. Oh, it's very dear to me. It just brings back memories of how we started. So from time to time I revise it. And just recently I had really not done the Bhagavad Gita from Swami Shankarananda's commentary, and which is highly rated, very extremely. Swami Dayananji also used to say that. It's just that it's very voluminous. And so, but now I decided I'm going to go through that. So these days, along with the study of Rudram, I'm also doing the Bhagavad Gita. So some time ago, I was just reading this, and in fact, I'll show it to you. Hold on. So this is the book that I have. I think I might have mentioned it last week also. So this is a book that I've had since, when did I get it? It doesn't say the date, but it was in the PRC days, so it must have been in the 79 through 82 time period that Swami Siddhabodhananda at that time called, his previous name anyways, Swami Siddhabodhananda. He was getting all the literature from India, and he got us this. This book is, look at the type, and it's 900 pages. So this is why I've had it, but I've never really had the time to get into it until I was studying the 7th chapter. So going back to the example of Apparoksha versus Paraksha, Paraksha versus Apparoksha, the other way around, I was reading this verse number 26 of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Okay? So, the teacher of Bhagavad-Gita is Krishna himself. Krishna, of course, is the avatar of Vishnu. Vishnu avatara. Both Rama and Krishna are Vishnu avatars. So, they are, as the avatars of Vishnu, they are Vishnu themselves. So this is Ishvara talking, Ishvara teaching a human being called Arjuna. This is the context. As you know, I have nothing new about that. But the language of the teaching needs to be understood. And in context of the Apparoksha and Paraksha, it has to be understood. The 7th chapter, as you know, begins a focus on the nature of Ishvara. So it's called Tatpadavachya. So the second 6 chapters, 7th through the 12th, is Tatpadavachya. The first 6 chapters is Tvam-padavachya. So it is focused on the jiva, on the human being. The second one is talked about the Tatpadavachya, which is a description and focus on the macrocosm, the Ishvara. Then the third set of 6 chapters is to explain the identity of those two. You know that already. Okay. So here in the 7th chapter, Krishna, as the avatar of Vishnu, is teaching. And there's only, I think, 30 verses or so, 31 verses or something in the 7th chapter. It's one of the shorter ones. And so he's already started talking about himself and so on. In this verse, just this is what I want to focus on as an example of Paraksha versus Apparoksha. He says the following. So just look at this. He says, I'll pronounce it the way we ordinarily do. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. He says, Vedaham samatitani vartamani cha arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. So he says, hey Arjuna, I know everything that has gone past, everything that is happening right now, and everything that is going to happen in the future. Veda, aham Veda, samatitani. Samatitani means the one that has gone. Vartamani, bhavishyani, cha bhutani. All experiences I am aware of, but no one knows me. Mam tu vedana kaschana. This is the verse. Okay? Alright, when you read this verse and you read it with some with some shraddha through a person that is a trustworthy teacher. Not just off the street or anything like that, but somebody who has really studied it and so on, you get introduced to this nature of Ishvara. And that nature of Ishvara is that I know everything, but no one knows me. This is the introduction, okay? So this introduction is what I would call like an introduction to Hawaii. How it is an introduction to the nature of Paramatma, Ishvara. Introduction to it. And you have to study the words Samatitani, Vartamani, Bhavishyani, Bhutam. And by the way, the commentary by Swami Shankarananda is very voluminous on this. And every word, Bhutam, everything. And then the overall commentary and so on. All of that is really just so wonderful. So this is the Paraksha Jnanam. Paraksha Jnanam of the nature of Paramatma. And you have to really, so when you read that, what do you get out of it? You have an idea of what Parameshwara's nature and function and qualities are, which is very, very true. You know, you can relate to it as Ishvara, who has really who is the responsible for the whole creation. I am deliberately not using the word who has created, because as you know, as advanced students, there is no real creation. But who is responsible for this so-called creation? He is the Karana for it. And yet nobody knows him. So this we can relate to. Right? This we can relate to. We can understand this concept quite well, because that's exactly the situation. Who do you ask somebody, do you know God, you know Ishvara? At best you can say, I believe in God. Belief means I really don't know. You know, that's what it means. But I'm willing to look into it. That's what belief means. But nobody knows God. Nobody. Whole world, you ask anyone. They say, we don't know God. So nobody knows him. He says, nobody knows me. True. I also don't know, and others also don't know. And this is an introduction. This is an introduction which is a Paraksha introduction. Sorry, I forgot to put the audio on after the prayers. I always make that mistake. The video has the audio, but not a separate audio. Okay, so this is the Paraksha introduction. Now comes the fun part. And the fun part is to see the Paraksha as Apparoksha. To transform from an academic, that's another way to look at it. Paraksha and Apparoksha are technical words, but the meaning of that in our real life would be, as we've talked about it many, many times, merely informational versus knowledge. So the Paraksha is merely informational. That, this is what the nature of God is, that nobody knows him, but he knows everybody. It's kind of like, if you can visualize somebody coming into this room who has an introduction to all the people in the room because that person may have invited. See, this is an interesting thing. So you can say that supposing there's a person who has invited some people with specific ideas. He selected the people, he knows who they are, he knows their names, their history and everything, and he's invited them and they're all sitting around the room. But nobody knows him. I mean, you can see him, but nobody knows what he is, who he is, what his qualities are. So something like that. So Ishvara says, this is my nature. But now comes the fun part, where if you have done enough Shravanam and Mananam, you are ready for Nididhyasanam. You have a different view of what this means. And what that is this. When Krishna is talking about, I know everything, but nobody knows me, you have to see that the Paramatma is also the Jivatma. What does it mean? It means, excuse me, I'm going to bring this a little bit closer together. It might be scratching. It means you don't see Paramatma as being different from who you are. If you want to approach it with humility, you don't have to say, I am Paramatma. As I have now been saying this for a while, because your mind will not allow you to do that. Immediately you will say, what? Are you crazy or what? You're not even some big person that everybody looks up to, and you're saying you're Paramatma. Your mind will say, shut up. That's not the way to look at it. But the way to look at it, this is what Vedanta has been teaching, and we need to really visualize it and understand it. You don't see any limitation of Paramatma, and so you efface your own personality and understand that Paramatma is also you. There's no limits to Paramatma. That way your mind says, okay, I can allow that. That's okay. Anyway, that's just a method of meditating. But let's now look at the fun part. So the fun part is, which is the transformation from Paraksha to Apparoksha, that you take the meaning of this verse, Vedaham samatitani vartamani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani na vedaha sakaschit. Something like that. You take this verse from your own standpoint. And what you can do is you can substitute your own name to Arjuna. You can just talk to yourself. And then you can see what is being said. What is being said is, and this you can even just sit and meditate and just calmly see this fact. Meditation means that you have no other obstruction. You are fully engaged in what is being talked about. That's what meditation is. And this is a nididhyasana, Vedantic meditation, where the teaching becomes real to you in your own mind. So there you can just meditate and say, look at the truth of it. See, the whole idea is that it is true, but I don't see it yet. But I will, by first being introduced to it and then seeing it for myself. So you see it for yourself as follows. Everything that happens in my life, I know. Whatever has been past, I know. And if there are certain parts of your life that you cannot remember, that also you know. I remember when I was, you can fill in the blanks, when I first went to school. But I don't remember anything on my first day of college. That's okay. That means you know certain things, and you also know that you don't know certain things. This is a fascinating thing, that you can know certain things that are that have an indelible mark on you. But what you had for lunch yesterday, you can't remember. So there is a logic to it. It's trivial and so on. But anyway, going back to the fact that look at this. Underlying my life, I know the past. What is happening to me right now? What is happening not just to me, but what is happening? The sounds, the picture, the room, I know. And if you have some plans for the future, hopefully not some fears of the future, concerns about the future, you know that. So if you look at it, you are the Ishvara of your life. Really. Because you have a view of everything that happens to you. But and I would even say before going to the but, you are aware of your own personality, what you look like, what your power is, what your thinking is, what your memory is, how smart you are, how your enjoyments as a bhokta, your ability to do things as a karta. You know all of that. Everything you know. But nothing that you see, including yourself as a person, as a karta, as a bhokta, as an ahankara, as manaha, as buddhi, as chittam, as pranaha, certainly not as this gross body. None of this has any idea of the Sakshi, the one who knows you, who knows everything. But we have no idea about this person that knows everything. What is the nature of it, we don't know. We don't know that it is not something that is born. We don't know that time means nothing to it. It is beyond time. There's no change to it, ever. No possibility of it disappearing. It is infinite, ananta. And it is the nature of ananda. All ananda that is experienced is due to this person, the Sakshi. We don't know that. I don't know it as a bhokta karta, as a jiva. I don't know it. Nobody seems to know it. What a strange thing. Later on in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna laments. He says, I cannot believe it. I can't believe that I am right there, responsible for you, making you see, making you hear, think, behind everything that you do, but you don't know me. Oh my God. He uses the word aho. There's a lamentation. So here you can see that the introduction to Ishvara starts as a Paraksha Jnana. But the Paraksha Jnanam is an invitation for Apparoksha Jnanam. Just like when A brochure is given to you as an invitation. Please go there and enjoy. So Vedanta is really like a brochure. He says, get to know yourself. And the more you do, you say, oh my God, this is true. So to know the Sakshi as being asangaha, swayam siddhaha, swayam jyotihi, anadihi, immortal, is the Apparoksha jnana. Anyway, we took a diversion on the nature of the transformation from an introduction, informational. So the brochure that is given to you is informational. It was interesting. I think, I don't know if you remember this or not, about 4 years ago, my wife and I we went on a cruise, a family cruise with our family people. I usually just do that. I don't do it for pleasure. It is just a nice way but I think if we can see some places it was interesting. We went to the Northern European tour where we started from Italy, and then we went north towards Sweden, and then we passed through many of these countries that used to be part of Russia, Estonia and so on, right on the sea, all the way up to Russia. We went to St. Petersburg and to Leningrad, and then we went to not Iceland. What is it called? Finland. We went to Finland, and then came back to Germany. It's a very nice one, and it gave me a very close introduction to the Russia that it used to be, and how it lost it and is still trying to get it back to it. Now I can relate. I've never been to Ukraine, but I can relate to what's happening there. That's a separate topic. I won't get into that. But so the transformation from information to knowledge is natural. And introductions to the brochure that I was talking about. Oh yeah, there was a train of thought that I missed for a minute. So we went on this cruise. So this cruise operator now sends me so much junk mail. I have no interest in going anywhere. Cannot believe how much money they spend in sending me these brochures to faraway places. Have you been to here? I don't even open it up. But anyway, the introduction to it starts with a brochure. So the study of the Bhagavad-Gita starts with information. You just look at how Ishvara says, but then you have to see the nature of Ishvara is nothing but yourself. You have the same qualities as Ishvara does. You have the ability to see everything in your life. Not the ability, you just have it. It's not a quality, that's your nature. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So this is called Jnanam. Satchid Anandaha. So Chit Swarupaha. Chit Swarupa means Sakshi Rupaha. You know everything that is going on in your life. But you have not looked into this person who is aware but uninquired into. And of course, we know this very well, that you cannot see it as the same way. And that's the reason we don't know it. Because we think everything has to be under my purview, I have to look at it, where is Paramatma, and so on. It's not like that. So the pramanam has to come from someplace else. He says, you are the one who is looking. And don't you see that the looking person is anadi? It is timeless. Don't you see that? That understanding has to take place. Because you cannot look at it yourself. So that is the transformation to the Paraksha, to the Apparoksha jnana. Anyway, so that's just a kind of a side trip that we took. When this topic came up on this introduction to 551, I thought I would give that example of looking at the Bhagavad-Gita first from the standpoint of Ishvara, Krishna, and then visualizing it for yourself. And not visualizing like, not upasana that, may it be wonderful if I... That's the truth. And we miss the truth. So it's not superimposing it on yourself or anything. It's not make-believe. It's not a play. It's the truth. Anyway, that's a separate thing. Okay, let's go back to the future plan. Obviously, with much less time today, we may not be able to finish it. Okay, so the entire Brahma Sutra consists of 555 sutras. As I think we did that in the beginning when we started this a year ago. But just to very quickly revise that. These 555 sutras are divided into 4 chapters called adhyayas. 4 chapters. Each of the chapter is divided into 4 sections called pada. So we have adhyaya, chapters, and then we have 4 sections called padas in each adhyaya. So we altogether have 16 padas in the Brahma Sutra. Each pada has multiple topics called adhikarana, which we have seen. So we saw the samanvaya adhikarana, ikshadi adhikarana, we saw so in the first 4 sutra, each sutra is a separate adhikarana, is a separate topic. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So the first one is Jigyasa Adhikaranam. The topic is that unless you want to know, don't study it. And don't teach it to anyone unless somebody... This is called Jigyasa, Jnatum Ichcha. So the Adhikarana is called Jigyasa Adhikaranam. It's a topic. So the first 4 sutras are separate topics. So this is called Adhikarana. Adhikarana means a focused area called, this is the topic. You know what a topic is. So each pada has multiple adhikaranas. There are a total of 191 adhikaranas in the 555 sutras. 191. And in some cases, some people say 192. So there's just some, I don't know the difference, how they're counted one, but they're close. So there's no big disagreement. So 191 adhikaranas are there in the entire Brahma Sutra. Okay? So let's look into the 4 adhyayas. How are they divided up? So briefly, the first adhyaya, which we had been studying, the first 4 sutras are in the first adhyaya, first chapter, is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. And I think we have already talked about it, that the 4th sutra, Tattu Samanvayat, is actually describing the entire chapter. If you want to say the description, I am avoiding the word topic, but the entire description, the heading of the chapter is called Samanvaya. It is a kind of like a major topic. Major topic is Samanvaya. Samanvaya means consistency. So there it means, as you know very well, that the Brahma Sutra is not the brainchild of Vyasa as an independent thinker, but it is the brainchild of Vyasa to summarize the entire teaching of the Vedas in understandable form, and a complete set of advice on the study of the Vedas. That is the brainchild. In other words, so it's not called Vyasa's composition. Although we will actually tell you that you could call it Vyasa's composition, and it is a Vyasa's composition, but the main thing is that it's an interpretation of the Vedas, not an independent thought, as it is for a lot of the other thinkers who think that Vedas really doesn't have a complete picture. I'll tell you what it should be. So this is how the religions get started. If you go back to the very beginning of the religious thoughts, whether it is Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity, whatever it is, and to a certain extent we can even say Sikhism, Sikha, there is nothing but Vedas in there. But now, because of some changes and so on, they say this is called Sikhism, and we are opposed to Hinduism. Crazy. Anyway, so as opposed to the others, that is the brainchild of certain people, this is the Veda itself, which is nothing but Apparoksha, which is the nature of Ishvara himself. So Vedas, Vyasa rather, is simply interpreting things. So this is called Samanvaya. That really the entire Vedas has, as you know, is called Tatparya Nishchaya, the ascertainment of the essence of the Vedas, which is Tattvamasi. That between Ishvara and the Jiva there is no basic difference, as we saw. That really Ishvara also says that I see everything, but nobody sees me. Same thing is true for the Jiva. The Jiva sees everything, but the nature of the Jiva we don't know. Very strange. So this is called Samanvaya. So this is the first Adhyaya. Then the second one is called Avirodha Adhyaya. Avirodha. So it's actually a kind of like a transformation of the word Samanvaya. Virodha means opposition. Avirodha means non-opposition. So here it's a very particular form of Samanvaya that in fact it proves that between Brahma Sutra and the Vedas there is this is the same thing. Between Vedas and Smritis like Bhagavad-Gita there is no no virodha, there is no opposition. It's all the same thing. And within Bhagavad-Gita and within the Vedas also there is no opposition. It's all the same. So to understand that also is called avirodha. So that is the second adhyaya. Then the third adhyaya is called sadhana adhyaya. So here the adhyaya has to focus on how do you get to... So this is the transformation of Paraksha to Apparoksha in a way. Sadhana means Apparoksha Jnanam, sadhana for Apparoksha Jnanam, isn't it? So first you get introduced, then you have to visualize. All of that is talked about as part of the sadhana. And very detailed one in terms of how to do it, what are the obstacles that you might encounter, how to overcome the obstacles. All of that has to do with the method of inquiry, the method of practicing it, visualizing it. All of that is called sadhana. So the third adhyaya has to do with sadhana. The last adhyaya is called phalam, the results. And so you are doing all of this study and so on and so forth. What will you get out of it? How you should visualize, how you should understand when you have achieved it, that you've reached the goal that you have set out for yourself. Because there is an examination of various views and ascertainment of what the true Tatpadavachya is of Vedanta study. Because people can say, you are just getting ready for the next life. You cannot achieve freedom in this life because you've got a body and if the body is just enclosing you and so on and so forth. You cannot escape that. Your only hope is that after you die, your Atma goes and merges. So some people will say that. It'll all be examined on phalam. And then the Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti and all of that will be examined. All people's views, which is the correct one, which is the incorrect one. The whole thing is just a kind of like, I think I mentioned it to you. Brahma Sutra should be looked upon as the ultimate Supreme Court. And the word ultimate is important because even the Supreme Court, which was the human Supreme Court, it has human difficulties. Exactly what happens. So you have the Republican, the conservative and the liberal. There's some guy who's conservative, somebody who's liberal. That means they already have some biases. There's no such thing as a complete unbiased Supreme Court. They do the best way to sort through all of the conceptual issues about abortion and this, that, or the other. Now we have all these election laws coming up. But they are thoughtful people, but not blemishless people. Brahma Sutra is this is the court set up by Ishvara to examine without any blemishes. This is called the ultimate Supreme Court. Actually, the word supreme should include the word in ultimate. But it's not. It's just a kind of like a make-believe Supreme Court. This is why you have a state Supreme Court, then you have a federal Supreme Court, then you have a court of justice in the whole world. I guess I don't remember the name of it, but there's some kind of a... Anyway, so This is the supreme court. This is what Brahma Sutra is. That's the way to look at it. And this is a good way to look at it because in the Brahma Sutra, as we will be seeing, we've already been seeing it and we'll see some more, the way it is conducted, an inquiry is conducted for two smart people to argue that it should be this way or it should be this way. I think I was telling you this, that in our study at the PRC course, Swami Dayananji used to say that. He says, sometimes I feel we know more about Buddhism than the Buddhists know themselves. Very funny, but it's true. Why? Because we study Buddhism with an unbiased look and not with any agenda that we want to negate Buddhism. No. We want to understand why I'm not a Buddhist myself. What are the issues with it? What are the limitations of the Buddhistic thought? For myself, not to convert anybody. And in doing so, I want to really look at the best possible argument that the Buddhistics can give and see whether the veracity of it. This is what I have to see. So therefore, in a Supreme Court also, you want both sides to present the best arguments. I want to see the best that you've got and see whether that makes any difference in my thinking or not. And so just like, this is what we call Prathama Malla Nyaya. So in the boxing world, especially in the heavyweight boxing, and even I believe in the other ones also, which is an unfortunate sport, really, anyway. Why bringing up that exam? I'm not sure why I'm bringing up this. But in any case, the nature of the boxing matchup is that you ask a person to come challenge me if you think that the other person is good. Because you cannot just, a heavyweight champion cannot go to a 10-year-old boy and say, okay, challenge me. It's not a challenge. But if you got another person who is 250 pounds and he's been knocking people down, then you want to say I wonder if I can knock him down. Okay, let me have that challenge. So similarly here also, the Brahma Sutra is, you give me your best argument and let's see if I can be swayed by it. So that is the nature of each verse. At least each adhikarana, the topic, there are two opposing views that are given, as we will see. And then an answer is given as to what the Vedas say, what is the prevalent view, and so on. Okay. So this is how the Brahma Sutra is composed. This is the structure. Again, 4 adhyayas, 4 padas in each adhyayas, and multiple adhikaranas to a total of 191 adhikaranas in the Brahma Sutra. This is how it is composed. Okay. So given that, what are we going to do? This is where we have to make some decisions. So one possibility is, I'm just thinking out aloud, I still haven't really completely made up my mind, although I have some ideas on how I want to do it. One option is that we take one adhikarana as an example from each of the 16 padas. Okay? So if you visualize that, I think there will be a minimum of one adhikarana per class. So if we did that, it would be 16 classes, which is what, 4.5 months or so, 4 months. So that's one way to do that. Now I want to suspend the options for a minute to give you some other introduction to some texts and so on. All right. So I think I have already mentioned to you that the most deserving book is the Shankara Bhashya and a commentary on the Shankara Bhashya called Ratna Prabha. So this is what has been recommended by Swami Dayanandji and a lot of other ones. This is they say that this is the book to follow. And so we have talked about it, that you can actually, this is a very old version. This is about 30-40 years old. And it is in 6 volumes. Now I think you get a single book from Amazon. It's very expensive, about $90 or so. And it's all in Sanskritam with Hindi translation. So if you don't know Hindi, then there's no reason to get this. But this is a very exhaustive and thorough, complete analysis of all the 191, all the 555 sutras. They're very beautifully done. So, for example, the Shastra Yonitvat that we did already. Then it says the Bhavartha. Then what are the doubts? What is the Purvapaksha? What is the basic doubt? Why are we talking about this? So for example, just to say, so Adhikarana Sara means the essence of the Adhikarana. Is Brahma the main topic of Vedas or not? Purvapaksha says, no, it is not. That's not. Siddhanta says, yes, it is. And then the entire set of arguments why the Purvapaksha is wrong, why the Siddhanta is correct. This is how this is structured. So this is the book which is one book. Okay, I'm just giving you some ideas for it. There is a book here called Vaiyasika Nyayamala. Vaiyasika Nyayamala. And it is composed by Sri Bharati Tirtha. Bharati Tirtha is a contemporary of Swami Vidyaranya. And I believe both of them were disciples of Swami Shankarananda, whose Gita I was displaying a little bit earlier. So it's in that time frame. It's, I think, in the 14th century. So Sri Bharati Tirtha has written this book called Vaiyasika Nyayamala. So Vaiyasika means Vyasa. Of the Vyasa, pertaining to Vyasa, is called Vaiyasika. It's a Taddhita. It's a Taddhita change from Vyasa to Vaiyasika, belonging to Vyasa. Nyayamala means it's a garland of logic, a logical garland. It's called Nyayamala. Anyway, so this is a very interesting book and often followed by people, including Swami Dayanandji. And I was very fortunate to actually attend a class, a series of classes over 1 week in the year 2002 at the Anaikatti. And so this one has a shorter introduction to all the 555 verses. And I'm running out of time. I want to spend a few more minutes talking about this book and the possibility of my adopting my classes based on this. I haven't made up my mind, but it's a possibility. I just want to show you. That's another one. And there are other Swamis who have given some examples. Swami Sakshat Kritananda has given some classes on selected verses. Not all of 551, but just some selected ones. Anyway, one possibility, I'll just end the class with one more option. One more option is that we go through an introduction to the padas, a general introduction to the padas, also 16, but not go through individual adhikaranas or even verses out of them. So that might shorten the number of classes from 16 to 8 or 10 or so. So anyway, I'm still kind of mulling over how best to do that. But the objective remains the same, which is by the end of these classes, you should be able to get, number one, an overall introduction to the structure, and number two, if you were to have time to study on your own, how best to study individual adhikaranas. What is the method of doing so, and what texts you will follow? That's what I want to follow in the next few classes. And I have some ideas, but I'll wait to decide on some of the specifics until later on. Okay, so with that I close the class, and for the last time we will chant the rest of the Dakshinamurti Stotram and not do this from now on. Om Rahu Grasta Divankarendu Sadrisho Maya Samachadinat Sanmatra Karanopasamharnato Yo Bhut Sushuptaf Puman Pragaswap Samiti Prabodha Samaye Yaf Pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Balyadishu api jagradadishu tatha Sarva swavastha swapi Vyavritta svanuvartamanamahamittyantas purantam sada Swatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam Yo mudraya bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Vishwam Pashyati Karyakaranataya Swaswami Sambandataha Shishyacharyataya Tathaiva Pitraputradhyatmana Bhedataha Swapne Jagrati Vaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribhramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Bhurambhamsya nalo nilo ambaramaharnartho himamshuf puman Ityabhati characharatmakamidam Yasyaiva murtyashtakam Nanyat kinchina vidyate vimrishatam Yasmat parasmat vibho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Sarvatmatvamiti sprutikritamidam yasmatamushminstave tenasya shravanat tadarthamananat dhyanat cha sankirtanat sarvatmatvamahavibhuti sahitam syat ishwaratvam swataha siddhye tatpunarashtadha parinatam chaishwaryamavyahatam Ashubhani nirachashte tanoti shubhasantatim smriti matrena yat pumsam brahmatan mangalam param atikalyana rupatvat nitya kalyana samshrayat smartranam varadatvat cha brahmatan mangalam viduhu omkarascha shabdascha Dvavetau brahmanah pura kantham bhitva viniryatau tasmat mangilikau vubhau omatha asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya om purnamadah purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So Chola, yes, it's true that the Adhikaranas give you the essence of the entire Brahma Sutra. But to understand, the issue is that even to get a full understanding of the Adhikarana, you need to spend a lot of time. And certainly if you look at 191 Adhikaranas, we are not going to be able to do this in this class, or once a week class, but suppose you do it on your own, 191. By the way, I want to show it to you, since we are on that topic. This is a book that I don't know, we'll have to see how to get this. I have no idea whether some English translations are available or not. This also is a Hindi translation of it. Anyway, I'll talk about it in more detail next time. But if you look at this book, there are 4 pages of Adhikaranas. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 191 Adhikaranas are given in these 4 pages. And they are on Sanskritam, so you can at least get an idea of what the name of the Adhikarana is. But as far as understanding the Adhikaranas, it takes a little while. Anyway, what I was saying was that suppose you want to do it yourself, you should be prepared to spend probably 1 day per Adhikarana minimum. I would say several days for one Adhikaranam, just to understand what the Adhikarana is. You're looking at, supposing you try to do it once every day, You're looking at about a year in doing so. So anyway, yeah, but that you're right, that gives you the essence of the entire Brahma Sutra. Yeah, good, Keshav. I'm happy that you're substituting your own name on during meditation. Good. Actually, a very good practice. Satish Jalota. So I'll give this. This is a very big thing I want to do. Is to really invite all of you to come with me to Saylorsburg, where we study for 1 week thoroughly. And the topic that I've already chosen is the essence of the Sri Rudram. So I'm going to write to you about it and urge this a camp where we all live together in the ashram, and it'll be very beautiful. You will see a lot of advantages of not having to cook or worry about your other things. So that, Satish, will start on Saturday, June 18th through the next Saturday, June 25th. But anyway, I haven't started really telling you about it. I need to do that one of these days and send you an invitation and urging you to please book your travel, at least have a time for 1 week where we would all study thoroughly 3 or 4 classes a day, and you will get a taste of the ashram life. And the good part of this is that Swami Viditatmananda was the one who wants me to do it. So it's not an ego on my part. Swamiji says, come, you have to do this. So I'm expecting a fair number of you to come with me. And so I will write to you about it. But anyway, that is the plan. It's 18th to the 25th of June. Okay, with that, I take your leave and we will see you next week. Hari Om.